HTC has a great website to help you set your Vive up for the first time. They have videos, guides, different tutorials that will walk you through the process of setting your Vive up, getting it up and running and playing games. I did run into a few issues when I was setting up my Vive that I don't think they addressed, and I'm hoping that this video will show you those and make it a little bit easier for you if you're going through this as a beginner. When you open the Vive for the first time, you want to make sure the basic components are in the box. You're going to get controllers, and these are going to track the motion of your hands and your placement in the area that you play in that's called a play space. You're going to get a headset, and this is probably the most familiar component out of all of the components for VR. So if you've never seen a headset before, this is the headset for the Vive. I think it's the coolest looking one. It's a little bit heavier than some of the other headsets, but it does a great job. You can see on the inside you're going to get a cover here, and that's the lenses for the headset that puts you into virtual reality. You're going to get base station cameras. Now the Vive has these special base station cameras. They're set up in a way that they kind of track your motion in the play space, so you can kind of imagine this little box, and these guys are kind of tracking where you are in the room. And then you're going to get a link box, and that's just the box right here that will hook your Vive up to your computer. One quick note before you set up your Vive: I highly suggest that you plug the controllers into a USB hub and get them charging. It doesn't mention that in the manual, but if you don't do this, you will not have charged controllers when you go to play. So charge them up first. Also, if you haven't already done this, grab the Steam VR performance test. This will actually run a benchmark on your computer to make sure that your computer is VR ready. If you have any components that may be not up to par, it's going to let you know how that's going, and it just kind of gives you an idea of how your system is performing. Once your test is complete, you're going to be presented with a screen with your test results. So the next part of the setup is going to be the link box. This is the box that links your computer to your VR headset. It's pretty straightforward. We'll go through the components really quick. The link box itself is not all that big. It's just this little itty bitty gadget right here. It's got the connections for the headset, for USB to the headset, and for power to the headset. And on the back side is the parts that you're going to hook to your computer. And these are the cables that you're going to need to hook your link box up. So like I said, the computer part is going to be on the back side here. And you're going to want to hook your USB cable in to the box, and that's going to go into your computer. Make sure it's a USB 3 port. That should be a blue port on your computer. You will also have an HDMI port that goes into the link box, and that will hook into the graphics card on your computer. And the power. And once we get that all hooked up, we'll fire up the software and get started. Also, there is a cloth for cleaning your headset. They recommend that you only use this type of cloth when you're cleaning the lenses on your headset. And this is an extra headset guard for your headset. Now that you have your link box hooked to your PC, the next step is to launch Steam, and then make sure you have Steam VR installed. Once you've installed Steam VR, go ahead and click the play button, and it should start up this software right here. As you'll notice that we don't have the headset or the controllers or the base stations installed. So the next step for us is to go ahead and plug in the headset, turn on the controllers, and plug in the base stations. Now once your headset and your base stations are plugged in, they should come online. It'll take a few minutes for the drivers to install. At this point, you want to shut down Steam VR, launch it again, and you should at least have these icons here where you have your base stations coming online and your VR headset. This is the part where it got a little bit confusing, is that it seems like a lot of these systems are coming out and the firmware is not up to date. So what we're going to want to do is click on this device here and hit update available. And it's going to ask me, it says to update the firmware, we will need to quit all of your current running VR applications. Would you like to continue? hit yes. Now the steps here work pretty well. You want to unplug the base station from the power. Use a micro USB cable. You can use one that came with one of your controllers, and you want to plug in the base station into the USB port of your computer. Then you want to hold down the channel button. That's the button in the back of the base station, and then the firmware will start the update. So we'll go through this process. And the tricky part was to make sure that we do both base stations and get the firmware up to date as completely as it needs to be before we mount the base stations. After you get the firmware update going on your base station, it should only take a few seconds. And what you're going to want to do at this point is hit the Update More Firmware button. And it'll tell you which devices you can do to get up to date. I would recommend going through all your devices, updating your base stations, which is really the hardest part, and then getting your headset and then eventually your controllers up to date. And as you can see, we successfully updated the firmware on the headset. So we're going to check one more time. We're going to go to More Firmware Update, and everything looks good. So at this point, let's go ahead and plug the base station back in, and then we'll plug in the controllers because I know those are going to need firmware updates as well. So here's one more little gotcha that I ran into with my system. You may not run into this with yours, but if you do, this might be helpful. When I got the controllers plugged in, I got the firmware updated on them. Everything comes online except for the controllers. Well, there seems to be an issue with certain USB ports. So the workaround for that is to have the USB port plugged into your computer, plug your controller in, and then turn the power on after you unplug the cable. That will initialize the controller. It should then come online, and from there you should be good to go. You may have to do this every once in a while when you're going to play your VR system. Hopefully there will be a fix for this in the future, but right now that's the workaround that I have. I'm going to look into this to see if there's something else I can do to make this a little bit better. Now that your Vive hardware is all installed and online, the rest of the setup is pretty self-explanatory. You can go to vive.com/setup and watch all these videos. They're very informational. They'll get you up and running. I know Vive claims that you can have this up and running in 15 minutes. Maybe you can. It took me a little bit longer than that. But once you get it going, it works great. You'll jump into Steam, you'll launch your games, and you'll enjoy the experience of VR. So let me know if this tutorial was helpful. Let me know if there's anything we can improve or missed in this setup tutorial, and we'll talk to you in the future.